Hello America. In Species, Identity of Volume, this is a video about how to think by Anthony Wall. Myself at youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. And we'll learn about the science of Romulus Wall and of Romulus and Remus and of intercampuses since semi-ancient times and intra-campuses of the republic for which we stand, inherited from ancient times, quoting the Pledge of Allegiance itself, invisible but still discernible. That's what always stands. Who understands? Attend. The timeless campus calls you home again. For education. Now this is how to think. Now we know also, this is what we know is recorded, but most people don't know it because we'll examine this. But that was the Revolutionary War. There were still entrenched roles with all jobs and things like that, titles, positions, what people could say. If the laws against if you would say things, and they had words in theater of force, therefore, they had to measure it out, value/value progression, not the theater narratives they have when they talk about how they built roads, the paths, or the native trails. This is because then and now we're in an identity of the ground. It's one identity of value/value progression system. Perfect. Where the perfect world already was and is, and will only increase, and all exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of this. As Leith of Hades is. Per correlation, meaning force-based nature transfer in relationship to the identity of volume that the body of forever is. That the identity of the body of forever is. And this is what English was revealed to teach with other languages. Also as its own science. Searching to be led by what is already perfect, A through Z. And is only going to stay that way or force it away from here, which is the bottom of the Z, forced away from A to Z. The top, more and more quality of diffusion, a little bit more semi-nature of this complete identity's volume. The identity of volume, that is, the identity of the body of space. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the semi-nature. So, this is also relevant to how investigators and investigations from former director of the FBI, people associated with the Witness Protection Program, other forms of relationships and roles with the FBI and their family members, and CIA and their family members, recorded and involved with also online platforms and their sense and sensibilities in relationship to what they take down and not, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with roles with on-off courts, evidence racketeering in relationship to those sequence shifts, reliant upon that. Because it's reliant upon how they, the sequence shifts are being used and stuff, things like that. Switching names, forging names, being used to further more and more stacked roles with more and more people needing to hide predicate acts with more of them. So we have all the identity of the grounds, opinion natures, fact sheet nature, formal, informal, private, whole bunch of nations, shared policing, sec, overt criminal enterprises, where and how this is maintained through completely as a fact sheet nature oriented. organized crime method, worse than war crimes, but simple organized crime method. Predicate acts delivery system method, rather. I'm not a lawyer, not a police form criminal. What is evidence is recorded how each of the sciences are self-valued, abridged, identity of the grounds, value/value progression, relationship intercities, where they have colleges and universities originally instill their identities in relationship to our fact-sheeping nature, having been employed as victims, as shock and awe, how that is exploited on off campuses of each age and nature, and on off private database relationships simultaneously, facilitated to the same individual grouped and together misprision identities individually grouped and together, manifest within that as fact-sheeping nature styles is actually recorded. And so it has actually recorded having been using the positions of interbranch, using the positions of relationships to that really which furthers the overt criminal enterprises. Not only especially, but especially differentially. Because many ways it's the interbranch that has been furthering them into, and I'll privatize them like prison people. The people the campuses that train the prisons, where are invested roles, like there's a Gold family. I barely know of her 2 times. Like I mentioned, like 2 times she came to, she's involved with sequence shifts, pretending passions and emotions for adults, interbranch and criminally foreign influence, a whole bunch of other nations, and their roles with the Wolrd Trade Center, leading up to in that attack and since, and with the same campus through time, then and further with the Principal Child Defenders campus, and with the school resource officers. It is also recorded how Hartford Hospital and the Institute of Living on their campus, but the entire campus has been polluted since founding. That was instituted in 1822 in relationship to how slavery was left in the North, and how that in relationship to the breaching organized crime method that is bigger than slavery, while as slavery too. That's a distinct part of it, where they were hurting people with more pigment harder and sicker, and then keeping exceptions to that too, to exploit everyone. They're explaining our words, how they are inseparable from this one fact-sheeping nature, invisible but still discernible as the identity of the body of forever. That is only increasing. Also, evidence of this is who denies this is recorded, reliant upon recorded self-value, criminally foreign influence science is abridged. That means the Constitution abridged roles, the surface values of the Constitution, regardless of amendments. Those whole amendment processes are recorded, polluted by people pretending their integrity, by nonsense. You want to understand our founders, you have to understand Marbury versus Madison, and on top of that, how he didn't have free speech and wanted us to not hide the impropriety, worse than, the fake justice, the fake integrity. They take issues real serious with little kids, just so they could hide their life aggressions. They force sustained. Man, now what is that leading up to? They should give them time to think. Those people have roles, and they do that against innocent kids. But one of their own, nothing. Not by accident. Because they were backed into it the same way the overt criminal enterprises were. Because this is about an archetypal criminal enterprise. Even if you want to debate that, it's about a breaching organized crime method. So we're going to call it an archetypal organized crime method. Not a lawyer, not a police form, not a criminal. And I want to keep it that way, and other people do, and the courts are individually grouped in together. A whole bunch of natures of the same courts and different natures of courts, intercities, leading up to and in the Trade Center with my town's police, with the former director of the FBI, with federal criminal co-defendants of his, federal criminals proven in other cases, and no, in other words, all tied to Hartford Hospital's roles with women and girls abused on my street and in relationship to people on my street. Like, for example, a woman mother who went into another mother's house, and there's like all those, there's like dozens of kids just involved with that, let alone how they have that involved with the intercampuses predicate acts. They've been using wire crimes to prevent me from telling on, and others, and wire crime methods recorded. They put me on fake conversation with 2 Mendez police. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by my neighbor involved with a Della Fera family. Involved with also a family I don't know on Pondside, in the house of someone who committed suicide years ago per them. There are proofs that it could have been murder though too, because of their roles with untimely deaths that are relevant to their also recorded uses of investigators and of investigations in my area since I was a kid for crimes. And I've been asking you guys for a response to the rest of the recorded forced sustained abuses on campuses. So now they're self-valuing for so in other words, the reason we have limitations with healthcare is because we have so much organized crime associated with it that has nothing to do with healthcare. Has to do with organized crime method acts relevant to tons of confessions from strangers tied to a Dillon family since I was a kid. An Anna Dillon, a Sean Dillon, and a Kevin Dillon. A Kevin Dillon and Anna Dillon recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with houses, a whole bunch of people tied to narratives with. I left out the O'Brien family. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with this Ray Cololo, with them timing me when I'm walking to in relationship to them, forging names. They have their extended family members further involved with some people on the sex offender registry associated with, and those same families, people tied to them making fake sex offender registry, pretending to be me map. Same people involved with predicate acts on off Trinity College, on off CCSU. This is worse than just extortion. See, the worst things are, the easier it is to discern where and how the identity of positive has simultaneous nature of 3 identities of positive. We'll examine in another video I'll do on 3 identities of positive. There's the identity of positive as negative value nature. That is where and is a tool in demonstration of where and how the perfect world is coming through negative value nature already made. How we're in a positive or negative value nature progression system method. Its own identity's method of self-generation. This identity of volume as the identity of the body of forever. Per the science that English was revealed to teach, with all the countries, all the locations, areas, and states of the entire species before criminal foreign influence, understanding this, perfecting, wanting to, they couldn't fathom without humanity would forget how to cause evolution's fruits and gifts. Evolution science that uses the identity of the ground, I'll gather round, that we have valued, primitively, tactically denatured since before cars, since before our founding parents were born, with the pathology of infrastructure and of means to it, that was involved with the fact, cheap nature, slavery of everyone. Persons A through Z, colonists A through Z, tribes A through Z. Individually grouped in together, they propagated everyone forced to reactions as war bodies, as just defense bodies, as shock and awe bodies. This is in relationship to where and how we are this body of value discernment system, where physical life, as plants and as animals, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, we have this cellular structure and demonstration of this trinity. This one identity's identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. It's also the phenomenon of 5 temporary bonded semi-natures in demonstration of itself, of its identity of volume. As your identity is the same exact way, and as your identity, while your identity is in demonstration to you of itself, attached to the finite order of the finite, the value of the finite, the order of the active, the value of the active, and the value of what is our progressive value. That is to discern this quality of diffusion we are here now simultaneously. And that is with an identity of sequence nature / simultaneous nature. And the slash is an identity of volume too, as 2 identities of sequence nature on both sides of this trinity. The order of the finite, the active, and the progressive, bonded, therefore. So, we'll examine this. This is how to think. And emotions have a relationship to these 5 identities of volume simultaneously. See, we have fact, cheap nature, organized crime, self-value. That is only capable of being lie progression, self-valuing the hurt of each age of correlation nature, each position of it. So they have off campuses maintained what is, this is easy to adapt because it never was discerned. This was sophistication here since before, and there, modern nations are defenses of identities as victims, only capable of being victim predators, where we are quality of fact, cheap nature, where all of evolution's means really come from, not money. That's a phenomenon. That's like saying reality is reality, and leaving out how criminally foreign influenced takes on reality stand. That's relevant because nature itself is our nature, and it's a system other that is tied to our fact sheet nature, prevented its correlation nature. So these are people from when I found out is recorded clear as day. These are people that I went to my grammar school. I never had conversations with, who were in the background involved with the O'Brien family and with a former Mayor Gold. Now these are also people of crimes against people on the platform with, and crimes against my brother-in-law with politics. He ran for some kind of politics. Now these are also people on the PTO who are recorded in the background with insidious games and sick narratives through each age of fact nature. We have military families involved with a whole bunch of natures of child abuse on off campuses recorded. Now these are people, when I was in grammar school, in 6th grade, I didn't understand the confessions. People make confessions about Central Connecticut State University tied to this campus in my town, 3 towns over. It's also recorded confessed. Now there's a whole bunch of people on, so what we need is a response. They have the Wethersfield Police Department through time involved with child abuses, elderly abuses. This is recorded a whole bunch of ways. They're denying it because they have other police forms and they have the courts already criminally involved with them. So they do things about lying about what's actually recorded on their location. These are ones that are involved with further World Trade Center predicate acts. See, with other nations, they're used remotely. And the other thing is the other nations are too. It's not sourced by one, but it's fluent through each, self-valued that way. They're only capable of it. It is recorded manifest when people make opinions on the news. They're involved with wire crime. See, the worst things are, the easier they are to discern. Like the database-related organized crime breaching methods since before computers that our founders left us to tell about. That which was involved with their fact, cheap nature, slavery, and torture. And worse. So, but we have other. That we have people that are experts on that, pretending that the sense and sensibilities of little kids can't handle things. As the ones know, further involved with recorded through time, make uses of confessions of their roles with overt criminal enterprises, also juxtaposed with simultaneously criminally pretending to be against it, with grammar school kids. Also, as people involved with this O'Brien family and this Gold family that I had nothing to do with. They sought me out for that, to make those confessions. And that relevant to their confessions, demonstrations of their roles with the Ray Clo and the whole bunch of people tied to them with the O'Brien family on both corners of Highcrest Street. And around with houses around the location of the Samuel Dix house. Houses around the location of the Webb Stevens house. It was first the Webb house with no the. It was just Webb house. That's relevant. Then they just changed it. Webb Stevens. Because this is where George Washington had to live, slavery. Where he had to meet with the French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. So, Hartford Hospital has been involved with lie progressions from their roles with courts. And they have to hide from correlation nature because they've been fabricating evidences with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of other. They're involved as victim predators with a whole bunch of natures of abuse is sick against each age of fact, cheap nature maintains self-value. Science never spoke. Honesty, integrity never spoke for people stacking in New York City. Throughout the world, the path in Russia and here, all the technology that the Russians and Americans have. We're in the since before cars, that which was forced with our founding parents, their voices were stolen. Marbury versus Madison. That means real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. Doesn't mean they're supposed to fake, pretend their integrity. They're not. Pretend other by quoting statutes that say that state they can do that. Like in relationship to how it becomes too costly. Where we have knaves trying to debate with each other. They have the word debate, word/value, all words. But word/value debate involved with the roles with election crimes simultaneously recorded, pretending to be against it, interbranch. Roles with wire crimes preventing free speech, preventing mandated law, simultaneously pretending other. Misprision. Uses of time treatments always too fast, too slow. Worse than just extortion against each location. Your roles with it or you're not. Everyone speaking through others is a bad thing. Boxing, because they're also attaching people to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people that they don't even know, fake nature ties to people they don't, because they have each age of fact cheaping nature, where this is exploiting the value/value progression. I don't know. See, and they brought up they know that women and little girls don't want people to be speaking about intimate things associated with them. So what they did was make the people who pretend that offensively as strangers to others when people know they're going to be walking at this location. And that's the only time they're ever going to know them. All exceptions, in other words, they were recording things through time. They were fabricating things in cases. They were forced to rely upon that when they're fighting with sanctions treatments, fact treatments about where they have shared policing, shared, relevant concerns with other people's business in other countries. Shared. We have hundreds of sick nations at once, A1 through Z, however many there are. So there was logic racketeering self-value. And it was employed to prevent mandated law. So we have criminal insidiousness natures and their treatments of positive to understand. We have to have understood how and why identity is value as nature and nature is value simultaneously. And so that's why the slash is relevant when I write. Because these are also people who pretend they're just saying, oh, I was just being, they pretend they have differences with people. Because they're involved with the courts have to bring things before themselves because they're involved with the area's crimes already. And with physical delusions. And with aggressions. So and with prevented mandated law. Fox Connecticut News is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with wire crime methods with WFSB and with WTNH, intercities, on-off schools, on-off the principal child offender school further, as people with sense and sensibilities and with narratives in the background that never met me. Any exceptions pretended other. Are recorded criminally involved by the people, by and as a whole bunch of other nations and people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Thaddeus Grabowski, also on-off Fox Connecticut News, predicate acts roles, on-off WFSB. I'm calling it predicate act. They're recorded criminally, pretending I don't have knowing that, because they're involved with these are people that then were involved. Each campus I went to with predicate acts, and they're all connected. It is recorded connected because they've sustained. They've been lying and coaching the sense and sensibilities of parents of former Governor Malloy. They told him lies because they were involved with predicate acts, recorded clear as day. He many pray. I've been waiting since I was a kid to respond to this. But everyone keeps forging names, switching names, falsifying, instant branch. They switch names because they're uses of time. You know how easy it is to use all time always too fast, too slow when you're a court? When you have other courts, especially in police forms involved, we're already invested with predicate acts, all kinds of identity thefts with them. We're going to have civil rights fights. And that's why they're offensively, they're used remotely. We're smart, they're self-valuing all groupings used to prevent our free speech from speaking about what is positive, which is how sick it is. The great negative of forcing that the people with pigment in the law, black, Jim Crow laws, and then teaching about it, sick as they do, as is actually recorded. They need to use their passions and emotions as the bench to pretend other. That is recorded. They need to use their identities, pretending their identities are the ground. We're recording those statutes that CNN put up real fast, too fast. No. While they're too slow. Involved with investigations on my street with predicate acts, with dozens of people tied to this, to a DeMoro family, to a Kerr family, and to other people on my street, and in my area, in Weathersfield, in Rocky Hill, involved with predicate acts on off Central Connecticut State University, with CCSU, also involved with lawyers, with the whole processes of courts and of lawyers originally and still recorded how used as fact-checking delusions wrought and roles valuing database racketeering that happened before that. Oh, we're just going to focus on this issue. So the ancient gaming system, we're going to focus on issues, but we're not leaving out exceptions in exception nature. See, they tell us to focus on issues and leave everything out. Oh, we don't have time. They're using time always too fast, too slow. All that time they've been wasting with theater, pretending they're just doing they've been preventing mandated law with people associated with healthcare. Now they want to have fights about such and pretend, So, let me see one person from one group. And I swear to God, I am not gay and I don't want to be gay. I'm saying this, I'm demonstrating, I'm telling on the branches of government here. These are people involved with slanders, with each of the campuses. They're involved with Dr. Shu, a doctor of modern languages, his wife associated with probate courts, and with other courts, associated with the houses on my street too, involved with predicate acts on off this principal child offenders campus, and with deans forging and switching names with him roles, with a whole bunch of people tied to this, with the federal criminal court defendants or former director of the FBI, how they have other nations' kids here and ours there, how they have people that are involved with scientific chemicals that would lose their job like that, but for how their corruption is through what is self-valued by, I shouldn't have to be begging for a response in writing. The courts are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that they use their location since I was a kid to attach me. They make confessions, and then they use the time to attach me and others to fake words, fake locations, fake ties to people. And then they pretend passions and emotions about people's integrity as titles that we never had a conversation with. They were stacking people in their families. So that's why they shouldn't be in other people's. I minded my business when I was a kid. Would you all know people's business? I asked to report things over the phone. They forced abuses of little kids, and their family members. They attach everyone to fake words. That's tied to the girls, also tied to predicate acts on off Central Connecticut State University against them, whether they realize it or not. The ones involved with the state police and the Wethersfield police and the EMS families, involved also with a whole bunch of Wethersfield police associated with the house on my street, also with a police chief years ago, with people with ties to him, involved with this, as the ones ties to the people with the World Trade Center attack. There's a woman that when she was a girl, she approached me one time and asked me repeatedly if I was friends with Ray Collo. I say, he's my neighbor. She said, but yeah, are you friends with him? Now, she was one of the ones also, I wasn't going to say that to her, but she was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with all their confessions of their roles with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones. And with that which is a grammar school person can demonstrate the physical delusions of states and of experts on each of the subjects is when they make opinions about color. When they make opinions about when people have reactions and where color is the subject. They want to keep serious, insidious. Criminally foreign influenced and insidiousness natures of serious. We have what they call adult, being an adult. Roles with this method that is sustained identity thefts, frauds, and worse than racketeering roles. So let's get going and follow mandated law. New York City. Make sure you get. This is what I'm asking you guys to help me to do. We're going to make demands because we have mandated law on our side. You're going to see there are also all kinds of networks, are also all kinds of ways the advertising companies associated with them are with organized crime. All kinds of medical corruption. They have more money than they need. And they have elections locations, Wethersfield town offices, Wethersfield police offices, where they used to be, where they are now. Recorded and involved with their fact-cheating nature racketeering, using the right to lie outside of courts and on and off campuses, per their roles also recorded with predicate acts in cases and leading up to cases and with depositions, roles intercities, various natures of courts. There are a whole bunch of people with Middletown, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated also with the extended family members and a whole bunch of people tied to the Wethersfield Police interbranch from my town, Wethersfield, that are intercities. Also with this house on my street and all /S, all the. Now these are people roles with completely fact-cheating nature oriented, but then it is extended into worse. See, this is another method of organized crime that everyone's rolls with. They're also recorded criminally pretending people make conspiracy theories where and how they got caught up with a whole bunch of nations, fake sides together. And as one's fighting it with each other, like Russia and America. They're in collusion with psychology, for example. Russians against Russians, Americans against Americans. Delusions are criminally foreign influenced. And with the time treatments. And with also tied to the lipoaggressions. They're standing lipoaggression coming up natures. Follow mandated law. Now. So this is how to think America. New York gang, who'll train? We train, be native pure. So we'll set up, our organization will bump off an animate business model for a native, and who will agree to keep it, but make us part of it. too. So they'll be connected. And we will have rights then. Increasing. We'll be a trial tribe. Because the identity of the ground, relationship to the ground, these value nature systems are criminally foreign influence. They were in collusion, are in collusion. Note words like reparations. You know what that's used for? Because if you're entertaining reparations while you're blaming it on the wrong things themselves, that's exactly what they want and need. We have to talk about the actually recorded, still bonded extortion method, torture method, slavery method. Relief! Injunctive reliefs. See, but we have to talk about how the identities of the branches individually grouped together were maintained manifest crime methods, crime natures as identities, that as victims, but as victim predators only capable of being lipoaggressions from their locations and uses of that. Uses of their standing criminal and seditious natures as identities. So this is why we are cell body, this is why the cell body, the cell nucleus, and the cell wall are manifest the way they are. The cell wall is connected with the body of valid discernment. There are two identities of sequence nature with this, invisible but still discernible. The value of the mixture of oxygen and other gases, and the value of the mixture of the water and the air and the elements from the earth, from phenomena tied to the earth. So we have this tactically denatured relationship under our ground that was designed to cause these negative value nature progressions by that which was sophistication sustained here. Not just sophistication sustained here for a method that no one fathomed, to perpetually not be able to fathom, because everyone's preventing mandated law. New York's, Hartford, Connecticut, Wethersfield, Hartford, Connecticut. We're going to move this, it's hard. We're going to move pump. They've been preventing mandated law, forging names, switching names, interbranch, with child offenders also as this group from my town, interbranch, intercities, rolls with therefore dozens with predicate acts. But it's nothing personal against them too. It is recorded relevant to the crime methods recorded. That and how they are using the sense and sensibilities of people, including teachers. Note of Jane Austen. Who I believe that's a phrase of Jane Austen. We're going to be a campus, but we're going to use first correlation nature, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. See, they're trying to mimic this with computers, but then they pretend that's the only thing. That's logic. Oh, but that's the money there. Who has the most money can speak. They say it right to our face. Pay up then. They're breaching fronts, preventing free speech, preventing mandated law, no less, simultaneously, so way worse. Preventing religious rights, unless you're a psychopath. In other words, so they're make people fight with each other that don't even know each other. This is what they're writing. They're forcing us to fake conversations with each other, intercampuses of each age and nature, further and further locations, having people act tied to that. Then years later, they're having to act because they had conversations with me in the background with people. People from my town have conversations with me in the background because they had to pretend I can't speak and things like that. Because they're involved, because of the nature of the organized crime, they're involved with the medical organized crime. There's a woman on my street. In other words, I don't want to get into women's names. I don't even know their names. I don't even want to know. That's why I'm going to search people, especially when you want to get along with your neighbors. See, but then these people are simultaneously with a passive aggression too, and that's their phrase. They have their patients and criminals and doctors that make confessions. When someone tells you they don't want to speak, you know, then they keep speaking, because then they just write, you know. And these are people that I never had conversation with at all. They didn't even ask me questions. Ask me if one question. This Leahy guy. I had no, he put me all fake conversations, forged names of a Dr. Shamsi Ali. They had all kinds of religious nutbags and delusions wrought. Doctors, their family members, nurses tied to them, involved with all kinds of untimely deaths, also with their patients and criminals, child sex offenders, people further on off the Wethersfield Town Library, on off Hartford Hospital, the Institute of Living, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved various natures of courts, Dr. Zeman, involved with predicate acts with them. Further with people on the child sex offender registry and tied to the on and off campuses, further predicate acts roles with them. Now this is the guy who just made confessions to me repeatedly. I told them I didn't want to have a conversation. I want to have a lawyer. They don't let you have lawyers. And where they do let you have lawyers, those lawyers are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved. Like with, you know, like for example, there's a Trantolo and Trantolo recorded, confessed, and demonstrated to me that he has a woman who answers the phones for him who said I made a conspiracy theory. So he's also one of the ones involved with the networks with predicate acts on and off my town, intercities relevant, on and off their locations relevant. And that was one of the co-defendants of Robert Luskin, Thaddeus Skrbowski. There's also a Mulcahy family. And there are others I don't know, like a Mogman family. These are people who recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts against my family and against me. And as their roles with that, they're discrediting me from speaking about what I could discern because of the identity thefts. You know, I'm not going to hide their identity thefts. They're attaching me to fake locations. They have a Joshua Julian recorded both by them and by himself confirmed involved with organized crime and pretending to be against it with people that are involved with the predicate acts on off CCSU, on off Trinity College. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated all along Franklin Avenue and Wethersfield Avenue involved with predicate acts with them. Identity thefts, crimes and cases through time. All kinds of medical corruption, foreign and domestic. Now, make sure I get it, so I don't, please, where people on my street, there's a Tim O'Brien in Wethersfield, there's a Tim O'Brien, and there's a Ray Cololo that said to me that they're involved, that confessed, recorded, demonstrated with a whole bunch of other people that they're involved with some dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court, retired and standing, and Hartford judges attaching me to fake. No, I had a friend from another town when I was a freshman. I don't know who they hung around with. Once in a while I see them because he's my neighbor in my same grade that came in fourth grade. That was also related to the organized crime confessions through time. For example, tied to the ones and them simultaneously pretending to be against such. Their roles with predicate acts simultaneously too, like the Joshua Julian with the Facebook page of the Child Sex Offenders Campus. That note was also juxtaposed with them forcing that. As the ones further with the people on the sex offender registry, also further with their family members, with the guys tied to this Zeman, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. There's also a woman who says that her name is Pierce, and a bunch of people with fire departments recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with an Inspector Mike, and with a Mike Kerr, and with two Jerry Kerrs at least. And people with them, with the Wethersfield Police Department and the Dillon family, with my new and past neighbors, and people with military associated with Lowe's. Since before it was Lowe's, it's got nothing to do with Lowe's. It's got the area and the areas around there. I recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the people with identity thefts, predicate acts, on and off central roles, wrongdoing roles, sequence shift roles, on and off Central Connecticut State University. I think his name is CJ or something like that, PJ. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with this people associated with the modern pastry that this Ray Cololo and that Fred Grisette recorded. I didn't know at the time was the extent of it, but there's a Leahy family, and my town's police chief and his extended family members, like a Mazzucato. Now there's also an Apted family, like a Paul Apted, and he has a sister associated with hospital through time. People associated with the end of the Berlin Turnpike. There are state police, FBI, CIA, foreign families, people associated with the Soto family, people associated, with female state police involved with predicate acts with the FBI. So the FBI and the CIA have roles with predicate acts in cases, with predicate acts against these areas where there are shootings, not by accident through lifetimes. Not by accident they were blaming the causes of it on other things, others themselves, and self-valuing that as through criminal foreign influence premises treatments. North End of Hartford. The rest of Hartford, jump! No, to Hartford. Each part of Hartford sickly distinctly is a victim. They're all sickly, non-distinctly victim of the same thing. We have to just counter the people self-valuing offensively, dishonestly online and on and off campuses. They are covering up lie progressions from through time. The parents of kids had themselves attached to the impositions associated with this, with the extent of the database crime, with the extent of the criminally foreign influence logic racketeering, and fake positive simultaneously. Now, if you're not gay, for example, you go into all of a sudden you walk into a bar, you don't know it's gay. The second you find out, you're going to freak out. That's not because you're prejudiced. It's because you want to think you're gay because you're not gay. And simultaneously, no one's realizing the extent of the identity thefts, frauds, and worse than racketeering that our branches of government individually grouped and together are with, not just with all of the other nations they share, hundreds of them sick, not just with the overt criminal enterprises they further more than things like money. It's what's using that where they kept uses of identity ground locations used in their cases. They failed. Campus Marcius rises here all hail. So New York, all we have to do is get them from the names forging and switching interbranch connected, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated their roles. Connecticut courts with predicate acts on and off Connecticut campuses of each age and nature connected through time. Two principals. Mr. Murphy, please respond, so I don't have to use your name, because there is a Harris family also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with people associated with the Britain Superior Court and with the military and with this that were involved with abuses of your daughter, involving her with the predicate acts that a Harris family is involved with, and with database crimes and medical organized crimes associated with them, and with prosecutors like a Brian Silver. I never had a conversation with him. He's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with state police and with the state's attorneys and their offices and with their programs in Washington, D.C. and with the World Trade Center, relevant to the predicate acts on my street, also relevant to houses on Pondside, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with my new and past neighbors, also involved with relevant roles with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, 2 or 3 towns over, depending on how you look at it, and with Hartford, a city over, with Trinity College, same ones involved with the same predicate acts. Also Joe Aiello with this former Mayor Gold. This is from when I was in grammar school. They are also recorded criminally pretending I'm holding on to people's names as ones that were pretending they had conversations with me, with interbranch associated with them, forging names, switching names, and So they're not pretending they had conversations with me, or pretend they made fake Facebook pages, fake YouTube pages, pretending to be me also. But it is recorded that wasn't their motivations, whatever made them mad, and such insidiously, because I've been asking for a response in writing. I've been asking for a response. The courts criminally prevent writing. That's what's recorded. So now they have to hide that by pretending that we should sue for rights. But that's recorded involved with where it's relevant, how like this Trantolo and Trantolo is involved with so many natures of organized crime so simply, so easy. It would have been much easier to just, please, follow mandated law. Stop making conspiracy theories. See, they put me into fake quotes. They put me in fake conversation with a Mendez police brother on the Wethersfield Police Department's location. Put me in fake quotes. They did this to little kids that through time that are now men and women, intercities involved with predicate acts on off CCSU, that are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. Chris Walters has judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic people involved with predicate acts uses of his wedding as their roles with predicate acts on off Central Connecticut State University and in Hartford with people that are also criminally foreign influenced with them, as the people further involved with predicate acts with child offenders and on Two Rod Highway, associated also with the end of Walcott Hill Road, a pattern of confessions tied to there, and with the Spada family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that there are judges. A judge's family also confirmed this to me. The a Della Fera family also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with organized crime acts with WTNH, and that name Della Fera with little girls, and we have criminal justice people and programs with Washington D.C. with Wolrd Trade Center also tied to the predicate acts. Delivery system methods, acts, and roles recorded, and actually recorded natures with New Britain Superior Court, intercities with the same ones. This is not complicated. They're preventing me from having mandated law because Hartford courts, New Britain courts, all tied to them, and the police forms, Wethersfield Police, intercities, that was, intercities with them, West Hartford, New Britain, courts were involved with predicate acts off those locations, but also on off those locations leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack context. Also with other nations and uses of identities theirs and ours criminally. They're counters to each other criminally, while their little rap mob inside it. So, hey. New York, all you start demanding we get them on paper now. Get them from the names forging and switching. They're preventing mandated law from hiding how they are names forging and switching because they were simultaneously recorded. They're recorded stacking predicate acts, falsified police reports, and roles with that into databases. So if they want to deny this, have them do it with integrity. Stop using the national news networks and their judges, those federal judges. Get them on paper now. They're preventing mandatory. You can't ask them to report something over online. They can't defend what they're pretending in the background through time. Now, see, this is each campus I went to. People I never even know had nothing to do with pretending the other. So they can't. They're stuck now. Because these is also how they have the school resource officers associated with this Mendez police, with their natures of predicate acts, with my town's police chief. Let's go. No one has time for them forging, switching names. Each branch, dozens and dozens of people. Get them onto paper, motherfucker. Have them maybe say about how, because these are some degenerate people, so they do such a thing, they make someone swear, excuse my language. These also have the people uses of this FCC recorded with and the sensibilities of the online platforms used to prevent, enforce sustained mandated law not followed while they're stacking more and more crimes. because they have uses of their interbranch locations where they put subjects and they separate it from other things, where they were our roles with the overt criminal enterprises and the witness protection program, also and its stewards also were involved in the mental health care. Doctors of the FBI criminally involved with the delusions with the judges too. You have to count to those courts at the same time because they have been recorded with a whole bunch of crime methods that they needed to hide. And they needed to pretend they had for legitimate reasons, but they don't. As is also recorded per the actually recorded bonded natures of child abuse and women roles with it. Because their roles, their motivations aren't sexual. Their motivations are their life progressions, and they're actually recorded standing natures as recorded evidences that they need to hide. Each age of correlation nature, each location of it, each value/value progression of it, each person's name use. They have to keep the fake ones because their parents they already have the conversations through the kids criminally employed when behind backs, so no one could counter. That's sustained. Makes natures of people just free America. This is the sick. We're going to stay on this. How that is overtly sick and it's unacceptable. How there is people stacking in every modern nation. This is pantheism. That's our means. It's free. We have to make sure all the money of it, we know where it's going. And it's going to go into what only can increase. Otherwise, we're not going being led by the right. This gaming system goes by the identity of value progression that really causes evolution's fruits and gifts. It's native pure and uses ground, forced by Native Americans, entertained, only fathomable. Individually grouped by everyone, individually grouped it together, only fathoming this pathology of infrastructure and of means to it and of means to maintain it. Not by accident. We're in a trap. We're in a semi-inch trap. We're going to fight. This way, we'll all fight, but no one gets hurt. See, because we're going to keep everyone honest. I know they have the ways of keeping the same old outcomes recorded clear as day. Everyone who has experienced this, you're going to experience it in new ways. You're going to see how it's not really politics. It's not really money. It's follow mandated law. New York City, we have some cowards. Connecticut, interbranch, and everyone online too afraid to respond for the interbranch forging names, switching names, and online because they can't. They're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts and cases against a whole bunch of people through time, and with the prisons with them recorded also involved with this O'Brien Collusion group with a whole bunch of others like with this. Gold ILO group with predicate acts on and off the campuses connected, house locations next to them. Also with this Chris Walters and the person pretending to be him with the Wethersfield town offices and the Wethersfield police through time, and with their roles with the attaching me and little kids and their families to fake words and locations. That's also recorded and confessed and demonstrated in Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center predicate acts roles. Other natures of predicate acts, like associated with, they have programs in Washington, D.C. associated with courts. They can't think. They've been with psychology, delusions wrought since founding. Open your minds. This is how you think.